Across the trembling edge of the Arctic frontier where fractured glaciers groan like ancient leviathans awakening from millennia of slumber and the once immovable ice sheets bleed meltwater into rising seas, a deeper, more monumental revelation begins to take shape, for with every passing season, the thaw accelerates and the Arctic turns from a frozen vault of secrets into an exposed wound on the face of the earth, spilling truths that humanity is only beginning to understand, truths that unsettle the foundations of history, biology, climate science, and even the mythology that cultures have woven around the mysterious northern lights for thousands of years. And as this frozen realm opens, peeling back layers of time with each collapsing ice shelf, we discover that the Arctic has always been a cradle of paradoxes, a place where life thrives against impossible odds, where civilizations rise in defiance of nature's cruelty, where death preserves rather than erases, and where the past refuses to remain buried. Now, standing at the threshold of this new epoch, scientists across the world find themselves immersed in a convergence of disciplines so unprecedented that the boundaries between them blur like heat waves shimmering above the tundra, for the melting Arctic does not yield isolated fragments of knowledge but a tapestry of interconnected revelations, each strand weaving into another, forming a narrative that stretches not only backward into forgotten ages but forward into the uncertain future we now face. Deep within the thawing permafrost near the Kolyma River in Siberia, researchers carefully unearth the frozen remains of a cave lion cub so perfectly preserved that its skin still glimmers with golden fur, its whiskers intact, its tiny teeth sharp and pristine, its organs frozen in lifelike stasis, a creature sealed away for more than 28,000 years, and as geneticists examine this immaculate specimen, they extract DNA sequences so complete that they illuminate evolutionary relationships lost for tens of millennia, allowing scientists to reconstruct not only the biology of these long-extinct predators but the ecosystems they once dominated, ecosystems that drift in and out of focus like waking memories as we compare them to the collapsing Arctic biomes of the present day. Yet this discovery is only one thread in a much larger revelation emerging across the thawing north. For as geneticists sequence ancient DNA from mammoths, steppe bison, prehistoric wolves, and myriad smaller species preserved in ice, a detailed portrait of Pleistocene megafauna emerges, a portrait that shows not decline but resilience in the face of past climate shifts, until the relentless combination of warming temperatures and expanding human populations pushed these titans of the Ice Age into extinction, offering a mirror through which we must confront our own role in shaping the biosphere, for the story of the ancient Arctic is, in many ways, the story of human influence, stretching back far longer than we once acknowledged. Meanwhile, in Greenland, beneath ice sheets that have remained frozen since before the emergence of modern humans, meltwater channels carve deep into the bedrock, exposing layers of geological time like chapters in an ancient manuscript, revealing evidence that this land once assumed to be eternally frozen was episodically warm, lush, and alive, covered in boreal forests teeming with insects, birds, and mammals, a vibrant ecosystem that thrived millions of years ago. As paleobotanists examine fossilized leaves and pollen grains preserved in subglacial sediments, they reconstruct a world where climate conditions resembled modern Mediterranean regions, a world transformed not by human action but by natural cycles of atmospheric carbon, oceanic circulation, and volcanic activity, and these reconstructions provide a crucial historical framework for understanding today's rapidly warming planet, for they show that the Earth has warmed dramatically in the past but never with the speed, intensity, and anthropogenic force we now unleash upon it. Yet even as these ancient landscapes rise from beneath the ice, another mystery emerges, not one of biology or climate, but of humanity itself. Along the edges of the warming Arctic Ocean, archaeologists uncover remnants of a civilization more complex than previously imagined, stone dwellings arranged with surprising architectural precision, trade goods originating thousands of kilometers away, and ceremonial artifacts that suggest sophisticated belief systems built upon celestial cycles, animal migrations, and the spiritual significance of ice and water. These discoveries challenge long-held assumptions that the Arctic's earliest inhabitants were small, nomadic groups scraping out survival in a brutally inhospitable environment. Instead, the evidence points to interconnected societies that adapted brilliantly to shifting climates, developed intricate hunting strategies, and maintained trade networks extending across continents, revealing that the Arctic was not a harsh frontier of isolation but a vibrant corridor of human innovation. And as researchers analyze DNA from the remains of ancient Arctic peoples, they discover genetic markers linking these populations to groups across northern Eurasia and the Americas, suggesting that the migrations that peopled the Western Hemisphere may have been far more complex than previously believed, involving waves of movement shaped by climate fluctuations, resource availability, and sudden population bottlenecks triggered by environmental change, bottlenecks that echo eerily with the challenges our species faces today. Yet all of these revelations pale in comparison to the most unsettling frontier emerging from the thaw, the revival of ancient microorganisms whose dormant forms lay imprisoned in ice for tens of thousands of years. In remote research stations, secured behind layers of containment, virologists and microbiologists observe as once frozen bacteria revive themselves with startling ease, some exhibiting metabolic functions within hours of thawing, others revealing resistance patterns that defy modern antibiotics, suggesting that these organisms evolved in microbial ecosystems governed by pressures entirely foreign to the contemporary world. And though many of these microorganisms appear benign, some represent unknown lineages, branching deep into the evolutionary tree of life, raising profound questions about the biological diversity that once flourished in ancient Arctic environments and the risks posed if such organisms were to escape into modern ecosystems unprepared to counter them. This biological awakening, combined with the exposure of methane pockets trapped beneath the ice, the release of ancient carbon stores, and the destabilization of permafrost infrastructure, amplifies the sense that we are entering a new geological moment, a moment in which human actions have accelerated natural processes to such extremes that even the deepest vaults of the Earth can no longer remain sealed. And as Arctic nations expand military operations, assert territorial claims, and race to exploit newly accessible oil fields, fisheries, and mineral deposits, the geopolitical stakes intensify, turning the melting north into a pressure point for global conflict or cooperation, for the Arctic is no longer a remote wilderness but a crossroads of strategic interests, economic ambitions, and existential risks that demand international unity even as world powers compete for dominance. Yet amid this rising tension, amid the awe and unease that accompany each new discovery, one truth shines with unwavering clarity: the Arctic is transforming from a silent witness to history into an active participant in the story of our planet, a realm that forces us to confront the fragility of our civilizations, the depth of our ignorance, and the urgency with which we must act to preserve what remains of the ancient worlds now emerging from the thaw. For in the melting Arctic, we find not only forgotten civilizations, extinct creatures, and dormant viruses, we find a reflection of ourselves, a testament to the profound consequences of our actions and the delicate balance upon which all life depends, a balance that now trembles beneath the weight of a warming world. Across the vast and trembling expanse of the Arctic, where ice sheets once stood as titans of permanence, where winds carved the silence into a sacred hymn, where time itself seemed frozen in crystalline stillness, the world now witnessed a transformation so sweeping, so profound, that it defied every assumption we held about the boundaries of Earth's past and the fragility of its future. For as the Arctic melts, surrendering secrets entombed for tens of thousands of years, humanity confronts the extraordinary and the unsettling, forced to recognize that this thawing frontier is not simply an environmental crisis but a revelation of staggering proportions, a revelation that unravels our understanding of life, civilization, and the dark, ancient forces that have slept beneath the frozen surface since before the first human carved a tool or spoke a word. In the trembling twilight of late Arctic summer, when the sun hovers above the horizon like an unblinking eye and the air carries the scent of ancient Earth awakening from its icy cathedral, research teams push deeper into regions that were once inaccessible, their boots sinking into softening tundra that exhales steam like a living creature. Here, in this liminal zone between past and present, between what was buried and what emerges, scientists uncover the skeletal remains of megafauna that roamed the Pleistocene steppes: towering mammoths, powerful woolly rhinos, colossal musk oxen whose horns curve like the crescents of ancient moons, and with each excavation, researchers peel back the layers of deep time, reconstructing entire ecosystems that thrived in a world of peril and abundance, a world shaped by the unforgiving rhythms of ice and migration. But as astonishing as these discoveries are, they pale before a more enigmatic revelation unfolding across the melting plains: the appearance of humanoid remains whose characteristics challenge established anthropological models, remains bearing signs of cultural complexity, advanced tool-making, and ritualistic behavior far older than previously documented, suggesting the presence of early Arctic societies that adapted to extreme environmental oscillations with ingenuity and resilience far beyond what modern scholars believed possible. These ancient people, whose bones are pulled from thawing ground like ghostly testimonies from an era of giants, appear to have lived in structured communities, crafted weapons of astonishing precision, and navigated Arctic landscapes through cycles of glaciation and retreat using knowledge passed through generations, a knowledge that may have intertwined spiritual, astronomical, and ecological understanding in ways that modern science is only beginning to appreciate. Yet even as archaeologists reconstruct these forgotten cultures, piecing together fragments of pottery, ceremonial carvings, and bone instruments, another frontier of discovery emerges beneath the thawing ice, an awakening microbial world whose existence predates the earliest mammals, whose genetic signatures hint at evolutionary pathways that diverged into unknown territories, pathways that could illuminate not only the origins of life on Earth but also offer clues to what life may look like on other frozen worlds across the solar system. In laboratories fortified with layers of containment, researchers observe as these ancient microorganisms revive after tens of thousands of years, some restoring metabolic activity with astonishing rapidity, others revealing genetic resilience so profound that they could rewrite our understanding of biological endurance. And while many of these organisms are harmless, intriguing relics of ancient ecosystems, some belong to entirely new lineages, viral families and bacterial species with no modern analogues, with evolutionary histories that chart their own mysterious paths through the deep chronology of the planet. This biological awakening raises both wonder and alarm, for the thawing Arctic is becoming an unsealed library of primordial life, offering unprecedented opportunities to study antiquated biochemical systems but also releasing organisms that evolved in worlds profoundly different from our own, organisms whose interactions with modern species and human immune systems remain unknown. Yet the biological revelations are only one layer of a multilayered story, for as glacial melt exposes ancient shorelines, long-buried structures emerge, stone foundations arranged with geometric precision, remnants of dwellings constructed from mammoth bone, and complex burial sites suggesting ceremonial reverence for the dead. These discoveries shake the foundations of human prehistory, hinting that early Arctic cultures may have been far more sophisticated than previously believed, capable of artistic expression, complex language, and trade networks stretching across vast distances. Fragments of obsidian traced back to distant volcanic regions, decorative beads made from materials not native to the Arctic, and artifact patterns matching symbols found in far-reaching archaeological sites raise the possibility that the ancient Arctic was not an isolated frontier but a dynamic node within a broader network of early human interaction, a place where ideas, beliefs, and technologies flowed along routes shaped by ice, migration, and survival. Meanwhile, in the frigid waters newly freed from ice flows, oceanographers uncover landscapes that have not touched sunlight in millennia, undersea valleys carved by glaciers long vanished, ecosystems teeming with species adapted to darkness and pressure, species whose forms seem to belong to another world entirely. These ecosystems, isolated beneath ice for ages, offer glimpses into evolutionary processes shaped by extreme conditions, and as melting exposes them to warmer waters and new species, scientists brace for ecological upheavals whose consequences echo far beyond the Arctic Circle, potentially reshaping global currents, fisheries, and marine biodiversity. Yet even these ecological revelations cannot overshadow the monumental geopolitical shift now unfolding across the Arctic, for as the ice retreats, new waterways open like wounds across the planet's northern border, revealing shipping lanes that cut travel times between continents, igniting economic ambitions among nations poised to exploit newly accessible resources. Oil reserves once trapped beneath frozen ground become targets of multinational exploration, mineral deposits, rare earth metals, and vast fisheries lure governments and corporations into an increasingly aggressive competition, and military outposts multiply along Arctic coastlines, transforming the once quiet polar frontier into a battleground for influence, power, and control. The Arctic, once a symbol of purity and remoteness, becomes the epicenter of global tension, a strategic fulcrum upon which international stability may tilt. Through all of this upheaval, one truth rises above the rest: the Arctic is not simply melting, it is revealing. It is telling a story written across epochs, a story of species that thrived and vanished, of civilizations that rose in silence and disappeared beneath ice, of biological forces older than humanity and climate cycles that have sculpted the earth long before the first city rose in Mesopotamia. And as the Arctic opens its ancient vault, it forces us to see that the planet is not static, it never has been. It is a living, breathing system whose buried memory is returning to the surface, demanding to be understood. The revelations emerging from this thawing world compel humanity to confront its own fragility, its own responsibility, and its own place within a broader planetary narrative, a narrative that stretches beyond borders, beyond centuries, beyond civilization itself. For the Arctic's melting frontiers are not merely a record of what once was, they are a warning, a prophecy, and a guide, offering insight into how life endures change, how civilizations survive upheaval, and how the ancient past may hold the key to navigating the uncertain future we now face. As the Arctic's ancient ice retreats under the relentless advance of a warming world, revealing landscapes that have lain untouched for tens of thousands, even millions, of years, humanity stands at the edge of a revelation so profound it challenges the very foundations of our understanding. The frozen north is no longer simply a wilderness of ice, but a dynamic archive of life, civilization, and planetary memory, a realm where dormant viruses awaken, prehistoric creatures are resurrected in fragments, and human history itself is rewritten by artifacts emerging from permafrost that has long shielded them from the ravages of time. In the newly exposed valleys of Siberia, Greenland, and northern Alaska, archaeologists uncovered dwellings meticulously arranged with precision and purpose, ceremonial tools crafted from mammoth bones, intricate carvings hinting at symbolic thought, and remnants of trade networks extending across continents, all evidence that the Arctic was not an isolated, barren frontier, but a thriving corridor of human ingenuity, culture, and survival that endured climatic extremes that would confound even our most advanced technologies today. Meanwhile, biologists and virologists working in state-of-the-art field laboratories witness a phenomenon both awe-inspiring and terrifying: microorganisms sealed in ice for millennia, some predating agriculture, some unknown to modern science, reanimate almost instantly upon thawing, metabolizing, reproducing, and offering an unprecedented window into the resilience of life under extreme conditions, while many of these organisms present opportunities for scientific breakthroughs in medicine, genetics, and evolutionary biology. Others pose unquantifiable risks, hinting at diseases humanity has never faced, strains of pathogens that evolved in worlds so different that modern immune systems may be ill-equipped to respond. Across Greenland's thawing glaciers, paleobotanists and geologists reconstruct ecosystems frozen in sediment for millions of years, uncovering fossilized forests, pollens, and insects that reveal an Arctic once warm, lush, and teeming with life, a land of rivers, trees, and vibrant biodiversity, a stark contrast to the icy wastelands known today, and these reconstructions provide critical insight into how Earth responds to massive climate shifts, demonstrating patterns of ice sheet collapse, sea level rise, and ecosystem disruption that mirror the changes accelerating around us in the 21st century. offering both warning and guidance for how humanity might navigate the precarious future. As scientists follow the threads of human and ecological history through these thawing landscapes, a larger narrative emerges, connecting past to present. Ancient civilizations adapted with ingenuity to extreme environmental cycles, species endured or vanished in response to climatic pressures, and pathogens evolved in isolation for tens of thousands of years, only now reemerging as the ice melts, a convergence that demands a holistic understanding of planetary systems and the delicate balance that sustains life. The Arctic's transformation also reverberates geopolitically. Newly navigable waters create strategic shipping lanes, untapped mineral and fossil fuel reserves invite international competition, and nations assert claims over territories once inaccessible, turning a region long considered remote into a fulcrum of global power, economics, and military interest, while at the same time underscoring the urgent need for cooperative stewardship of a fragile and historically priceless environment. Amid these shifting landscapes, indigenous communities bear witness to the unfolding drama, their ancestral knowledge intersecting with scientific inquiry, reminding the world that human adaptation to the Arctic is not a modern story but a continuum that stretches across millennia, and that cultural memory, oral histories, and spiritual understanding of ice, land, and cycles of life offer invaluable perspectives for navigating both the revelations and the risks emerging from the thaw. In this unparalleled convergence of science, history, and climate reality, the Arctic stands as a mirror reflecting humanity's own fragility and resilience, a vault of information and caution, revealing that what we once considered desolate and inert was always alive with stories of survival, evolution, and profound ecological complexity. From the unearthing of steppe mammoths and woolly rhinoceroses whose DNA tells the tale of ancient ecosystems, to the awakening of viruses long thought extinct, to the discovery of prehistoric human settlements that expand our understanding of adaptation and migration, every revelation from the melting Arctic underscores the delicate interplay between environmental change, human activity, and planetary health. And as the ice continues to recede, accelerating faster than any human lifetime has ever recorded, we are forced to confront not only the scientific questions but ethical and existential dilemmas. How do we protect fragile ecosystems while exploring them? How do we balance curiosity with caution when the stakes include resurrecting biological entities from a distant past? How do we honor ancient human cultures whose traces are emerging from the ice while navigating the geopolitical pressures of a modern Arctic increasingly rich in resources and strategic significance? Ultimately, the melting Arctic is both a laboratory and a warning, a place where the past collides with the present, where knowledge and risk are inseparable, and where every new discovery carries the weight of profound consequences for life across the globe. The ice itself becomes a narrator, telling stories of epochs long erased from memory, revealing the cycles of warmth and cold, of life and death, of flourishing and collapse, reminding us that Earth's systems are dynamic and interconnected in ways that only now we begin to fully comprehend. From the pristine permafrost revealing the soft tissues of Pleistocene giants, to the fossilized pollen narrating climates of unimaginable warmth, to the tools and dwellings carved by human hands tens of thousands of years ago, every fragment uncovered is a chapter in a story that transcends human chronology and asks us to reconsider our place in the continuum of life on this planet. And as we close this chapter of exploration, standing upon landscapes shaped by ice, wind, and time, we recognize that the Arctic's melting frontiers are not merely relics of the past, they are living reminders of the interconnectedness of all life, the fragility of ecosystems, the consequences of human impact, and the urgency of understanding and stewardship, for the secrets that emerge from the ice, whether biological, cultural, or geological, are both gifts and warnings, illuminating paths of adaptation and resilience while cautioning against hubris and neglect. In the end, the Arctic teaches us that the Earth's history is not inert or distant, but a living force, continually reshaping itself and those who inhabit it, and that in unlocking the frozen archives of this northern frontier, humanity gains not only knowledge of what has been but insight into what might come, and the responsibility to act wisely before the last vestiges of ice and the last lessons they contain vanish into memory forever.